joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Let's get into today's topic. Today, I want to talk about the acronym known as FORD, F-O-R-D. Now, this acronym FORD is probably one most everybody that listens to No Days Off is familiar with. However, I don't know if it's one that's top of mind. I don't know if it's one you're thinking about all the time. And I think it's one of the more underutilized tools that's at our fingertips. If we would just make it top of mind. It's a very underutilized tool when it comes to making new relationships, when it comes to networking, when it comes to, just being in a new environment. And our default behavior for many of us, not all of us, is to kind of hide in the corner or back off. But if we leveraged FORD, F-O-R-D, we could engage, we can build more relationships, and we could do so without pain. We could do it with ease. Okay, so what is FORD? Again, my expectation is many of us are familiar with it, but let's just run through it. So the FORD method is just a mnemonic that's used to remember an effective way to communicate in social settings. It's very simple. It is something that I actually think about. It's something I teach. I even teach to my kids because contrary to what many may think, I'm actually much more introverted than I am an extrovert. In other words, I will prefer to hide in the corner or talk less, but recognize, given the nature of what it is I do for a living, and just my desire to get to know people, I've got to be more outgoing. I have to be more engaging. And the best way for me to do that, and for many of us to do that, is by creating a model, is by creating a system and then honoring that model and or system in execution of building rapport and getting into more meaningful conversation. It's not because I don't care. It's that because it's actually unnatural and even uncomfortable without the model and system. And so FORD stands for F is for family, O is for occupation, R is for recreation, and D is for dreams. So how would you leverage this? How would you use this? Let's make believe you walk into a room of people that you do not know. And you have to socialize. You should socialize. Maybe you don't desire to do it at the level certain people would, but it's time to show up. You don't want to be the guy standing in the corner, right? So how do you go about engaging? If you're thinking about FORD, it makes that process a heck of a lot easier. So I walk into the room and naturally I'm looking around and I'm going to bump into somebody. Maybe I'm grabbing a drink, maybe there's some food, maybe it's just a room of people talking, and I'm going to end up engaging. Just by proximity, I'm going to end up engaging. Now, if I'm leveraging FORD, if I'm thinking about FORD, it gives me a framework for questions that I could ask. So if I think family, F, family, maybe I inquire about this person's family. Maybe I ask about their kids. Maybe I ask about where they live and where's family live. So maybe it's something like, well, hey, Caitlin, nice to meet you. My name's Brian. How did you end up here today? Blah, 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 blah. Cool. Well, tell me a little bit about you. Did you grow up here? Is your family from here? Now, wherever that goes, I could ask a follow-up question. Oh, my husband or my wife, and I have lived here for years and we just had a kid. Oh, no kidding. Tell me about the kid. Boy or girl? Oh, no way. That's awesome. Oh, she's going into kindergarten. How's that going for you? Right, so family. Occupation, the O in FORD. Hey, what is it that you do for a living? How's that going for you? Do you like it? How long have you been doing it? Right, so you get to inquire about their job or their career or their professional interests or their experiences. Occupation's a real easy one. As a matter of fact, I'll break script here real quick. I was on a plane the other day and the guy next to me, he started talking around travel. And what did he then naturally say? He said, hey, what do you do for a living? What do you do for work? Why you traveling for work? What do you do? And I talked to him and I said, hey, what do you do? And he had shared. Now, it's kind of funny, but I'm talking with that guy next week about quite possibly presenting at one of our metrics events. It's just funny how that happens, but that came about because we were talking occupation. R, recreation. Recreation, that's about your hobbies. That's about the interest. That's about recreational activities. So the good question here might be, hey, what do you do for fun? What do you do outside of work? What do you and the family you just told me about do? And whatever they say, you can dig a little deeper. Then lastly, dreams. D for dreams. This is a little bit more challenging a question to get to. If you ask this one right out the gate, you might be a little, you might not be as well received. But dreams, really, it's about the person's goals. What are their future plans? Now, the way I like to ask this one, I'll say something like, so what do you got planned for this next year? Outside of work, like what kind of cool things do you have planned, or what goals do you have this next year? Man, I'll tell you what, people love talking about their plans, from vacations to objectives and goals. So this Ford method is an amazing conversational tool, especially for those that are more challenged in terms of doing this just naturally. I personally use it in all different sorts of social settings, at real estate events, at networking events, whenever I'm meeting new people. And I focus on these 4 categories because they're high level enough to give me some good answers and things that I could talk around. And by the way, it's important to mention, like, I am genuinely curious, but I also don't want to be overly inquisitive. I don't want this to be like, question after question after question. I'm just looking for a framework to prompt more conversation. So I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable, but if I ask a high level family or occupation or recreation question, I can then follow up with deeper questions. So the focusing question for y'all today, how can you leverage this Ford model in things that you have coming up in the near future? What social activities do you have coming up? When will you be in a social setting? When are you normally maybe a bit awkward or uncomfortable? Where if you leveraged FORD, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, you might show up in a different way, a more confident way, and you might even build some better relationships. Where might that be? How do you apply this today? That's all we have for today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.